The sky over the Midwest is beginning to darken, and the snowfall is intensifying faster than usual. At first, roads are still visible, and traffic is still moving, but within a very short time, everything starts to change. Winds pick up, blowing snow across the roads. Visibility drops so quickly that drivers barely have time to realize what is happening. Vehicles ahead gradually disappear from sight. At airports, flights are being canceled one after another as conditions are no longer safe. The storm arrives too quickly, with almost no clear warning signs beforehand, leaving many people unable to react in time. By the time they realize what is happening, the surrounding conditions have already changed completely. Over the past 24 hours, this winter storm has rapidly intensified and struck directly into the U.S. Midwest and the Great Lakes region, pushing weather conditions into a high-risk state within a very short period of time. Snow accumulation has exceeded 24 inches, equivalent to about 2 feet, and continues to build as snowbands move continuously across the area, making the outdoor environment increasingly unstable. Winds have strengthened quickly, reaching 50 to 70 miles per hour, and have begun to completely change how the snow moves. Instead of falling vertically, snow is being blown horizontally across the ground, forming dense white bands in front of visibility. When this happens, the surrounding space is almost completely obscured, and people moving through it can no longer determine distance or direction. It's as if their vision is being completely blocked in an open environment. Snowfall rates are reaching 1 to 3 inches per hour, but the danger lies in the way the snow concentrates into thick bands rather than falling evenly. When a band passes through, conditions can deteriorate instantly, and what was visible moments before quickly disappears, causing all reactions to lag behind real-time conditions. The main cause comes from a rapidly deepening low-pressure system. In meteorology, when atmospheric pressure drops sharply over a short period, it is referred to as a bomb cyclone, meaning a storm that intensifies extremely quickly, bringing stronger winds and continuously drawing in more moisture. With cold air already in place across the region, all of that moisture turns into snow, causing the storm's intensity to not weaken, but instead become amplified. Whiteout conditions begin to develop as falling snow and wind-driven snow blend together, completely eliminating spatial awareness. People can no longer clearly see ahead, cannot determine their surroundings, and even a small misjudgment within a few seconds can lead to dangerous situations. The situation shows that the storm is not only dangerous because of its intensity, but because of how quickly conditions change, as the environment can shift from normal to completely out of control within a very short time. The loss of visibility and the rapid shift in environmental conditions have pushed operations into near immediate collapse. From an aerial view, major airports across the region have begun shutting down as conditions no longer meet safety standards. In Chicago, more than 850 flights have been canceled, while Minneapolis has recorded over 600 delays, quickly turning Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport into a major bottleneck across the entire air network. Among the crowds stranded at the airport, many families have been forced to wait overnight as schedules completely break down. One passenger shared that their flight was repeatedly delayed before being ultimately canceled, and the only explanation given was that visibility is not sufficient for takeoff. For them, the storm is no longer something seen outside the window, but an ongoing disruption with no clear end. Flights cannot take off because pilots can no longer clearly see the runway, while snow continues to cover the surface just minutes after it is cleared. De-icing operations cannot keep up with the snowfall rate, and once one hub shuts down, the ripple effect spreads immediately, causing widespread disruption. The system is not slowing down. It is being forced to stop. On the ground, the situation has escalated into a direct hazard.
Oh my God. Oh my.
In Minnesota, hundreds of traffic accidents have been reported as vehicles move in conditions that are essentially like being blindfolded. In one recorded incident, a driver traveling on a highway said it took only a few seconds to completely lose orientation when a dense snow band swept across. As visibility vanished, the vehicle ahead seemed to disappear, and a collision followed almost instantly, leaving no time to react. Roads are buried under snow, lane markings have disappeared, and the distance between vehicles can no longer be clearly determined. The wind roars continuously, slamming against cars and buildings, while snow blows sideways like smoke, cutting straight across visibility. Drivers are no longer operating under normal conditions, but are moving through an environment that cannot be predicted. In that situation, the choice becomes difficult. Continue moving blindly forward, or stop and risk being stranded in a storm that is intensifying by the minute. More than 210,000 households across the Great Lakes region have lost power, as strong winds knock down power lines and heavy snow disrupts the grid. Once electricity is cut, the issue is no longer mobility, but the ability to maintain basic living conditions. Temperatures drop, heating systems shut down, and many areas begin to fall into temporary isolation. The situation shows that the impact is no longer limited to weather alone, but is expanding into a multi-layered crisis where transportation is paralyzed, infrastructure is damaged, and people are forced to directly face increasingly harsh environmental conditions. As transportation becomes paralyzed and many areas begin to be cut off, the situation no longer remains a mobility issue, but shifts into a more serious problem. People's living conditions are being directly affected. More than 210,000 households across the Great Lakes region have lost power as strong winds damage power lines, while heavy snowfall severely limits access for repairs. Inside homes, temperatures gradually drop as heating systems stop working. The cold is no longer just uncomfortable. It slowly spreads through enclosed spaces, forcing residents to reduce activity and conserve warmth. A family in Wisconsin said they had to gather all members into a single room, using remaining heat sources to maintain temperature, while outside, strong winds continue to pound against walls and windows. In another neighborhood, a mother reported that her daughter left school in the late afternoon, but could not find her way home as visibility collapsed almost completely. Familiar streets disappeared into a dense whiteout, and communication became disrupted as conditions deteriorated faster than expected. For this family, the storm is no longer a weather event. It is a direct fear of not knowing where their child is, in conditions where almost nothing can be seen. On the roads, the situation becomes even harder to control as some vehicles are stranded in the middle of the blizzard. With visibility nearly gone, people inside their cars can no longer determine their surroundings. Leaving the vehicle could result in immediate disorientation, while staying inside means waiting in steadily dropping temperatures. This is a situation with no clear choice. The storm continues to maintain its intensity as cold air remains in place and new snow bands keep forming. Roads that have just been cleared are quickly covered again, making recovery efforts unable to keep up with the pace of changing conditions. This causes disruptions not only to persist, but to spread further. Rescue operations are still underway, but their effectiveness is significantly reduced because conditions do not allow normal movement. Some response vehicles are forced to slow down or stop entirely due to the inability to see ahead, extending the time needed to reach affected areas beyond what would normally be expected. From the moment warnings were issued, emergency response operations were activated across the region, but real-world developments show that the ability to control the situation is becoming clearly limited. States such as Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan have simultaneously issued blizzard warnings, urging residents to limit travel and prepare for prolonged conditions, as safety can no longer be guaranteed for hours at a time. On the ground, snow removal and rescue crews are still operating, but their effectiveness has been significantly reduced as the storm is changing faster than response efforts can keep up. Snow is being blown back onto cleared roads almost immediately, leaving many routes stable only briefly before returning to dangerous conditions. Specialized vehicles are unable to maintain normal speed, And in many cases are forced to stop when all that remains ahead is a dense white wall where even a hand held in front of the face cannot be seen. Pressure is increasing as emergency calls come in simultaneously from multiple areas. Some reports indicate that rescue teams are forced to prioritize case by case, while distance is no longer the main challenge. Access itself is being choked off by weather conditions. When an area becomes isolated, response times can stretch far beyond expectations, and every passing minute increases the level of risk. At a broader level, the situation is not limited to a single storm. Across the Midwest, other extreme weather events are occurring at the same time, including severe thunderstorms and tornado risks in southern states, forcing resources to be spread thin. This makes it difficult to concentrate efforts in any one location and creates a compounded strain on response capabilities. In one recorded case in Michigan, a rescue team took several hours to reach a stranded vehicle located not far from a support center, as strong crosswinds and dense blowing snow made it nearly impossible to determine a safe route. Distance was no longer the deciding factor. Environmental conditions were fully controlling movement. The situation shows that operations are still ongoing, but the ability to maintain coordinated control is breaking down. When roads cannot remain open, rescue teams cannot respond quickly, and residents cannot move safely. The entire region begins to fall into a constricted state, where each area becomes an isolated risk point. Under these conditions, the question is no longer when the storm will end, but how long the system can withstand the pressure before small disruptions begin to escalate into a widespread crisis.
Whiteout conditions. Snowfall rates.
As response efforts begin to stretch and many areas fall into isolation, the impact of the storm does not stop, but continues to extend over time. According to the U.S. National Weather Service, this system is not over and will continue to affect the Midwest and the Great Lakes region in the coming days, with new rounds of snowfall that can develop at any moment. After the storm's core moves through, another factor begins to sustain the risk: lake effect snow. Cold air passing over the surfaces of the Great Lakes continues to generate new snow bands, and these bands can quickly push areas that were briefly stable back into dangerous conditions. This means the situation does not end at a clear point in time, but instead repeats in waves, making it very difficult for residents to determine when conditions are truly safe. The consequences begin to build as prolonged power outages weaken basic living conditions. Transportation has not fully recovered, delaying access to assistance, and some areas face the risk of being isolated for several days. As the cold persists, the pressure is not just about temperature, but about having to endure without electricity, without mobility, and without timely support. In reality, the greatest danger lies in the instability of the situation. Conditions may improve briefly only to be buried again almost immediately by new waves of snowfall, pushing everything back into a dangerous state within a very short time. This makes it extremely difficult for residents to determine a safe window to move. We would like to hear directly from you. If you are in the Midwest or the Great Lakes region, what is the situation like where you are? What is impacting your daily life the most right now? Share your experience so others can better understand what is happening on the ground. If this report helped you stay informed, follow the channel so you don't miss the next important updates.